Well, good morning, little masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Let's go ahead and get this week started with Mailbag Monday. Matt from the UK writes in asking a question about everybody's favorite murdering sneak, Gollum. In Fellowship of the Ring, Gollum is tracking the Fellowship within Moria. However, we don't get an explanation of how he escaped so quickly and was able to track the Fellowship afterwards. After Gandalf falls and the bridge is destroyed, the Fellowship escaped through the East Gate. But how does Gollum get out? My mission, should I choose to accept it, is to find a way out of Moria for Gollum. As always, should I or any member of the Fellowship be caught or killed, the Secretary, that's Elrond, will disavow any knowledge of my actions. This tape will self-destruct in 5 seconds. We won't go into 5 seconds. Now first, we know the typical way out of the main halls of Moria to the bridge was blocked by fire. "There is some new devilry here," said Gandalf, "devised for our welcome, no doubt. But I know now where we are. We have reached the first deep, the level immediately below the gates. This is the second hall of Old Moria, and the gates are near, away beyond the eastern end, on the left, not more than 1/4 of a mile. Across the bridge, up a broad stair, along a wide road, through the first hall and out. But come and look." They peered out. Before them was another cavernous hall. It was loftier and far longer than the one in which they had slept. They were near its eastern end. Westward, it ran away into darkness. Down the center stalked a double line of towering pillars. They were carved like boles of mighty trees whose boughs upheld the roof with a branching tracery of stone. Their stems were smooth and black, but a red glow was darkly mirrored in their sides. Right across the floor, close to the feet of 2 huge pillars, a great fissure had opened. Out of it a fierce red light came, and now and again flames licked at the brink and curled about the bases of the columns. Wisps of dark smoke wavered in the hot air. "If we had come by the main road down from the upper halls, we should have been trapped here," said Gandalf. So here's the thing. We know that the way out is further complicated by what appears to be the only way to the first hall, and that's the bridge. The text tells us it was an ancient defense of the dwarves against any enemy that might capture the first hall and the outer passages. They could only pass across it in single file. Plus, it's, well, broken now, so no file. That seems to eliminate that as a way out for Gollum as well. And yet, he got out. So how? Now, first, we know that Gollum made it into Moria while the orcs were present in his attempt to find the Shire. We read this in detail in The Hunt for the Ring in Unfinished Tales. I'm going to go ahead and read that passage now. "It seems clear that pursued both by elves and orcs, Gollum crossed the Anduin, probably by swimming, and so eluded the hunt of Sauron. But being still hunted by elves, and not yet daring to pass near Lorien, only the lure of the ring itself made him dare to do this afterwards, he hid himself in Moria. That was probably in the autumn of the year, after which all trace of him was lost. What then happened to Gollum cannot, of course, be known for certain. He was peculiarly fitted to survive in such straits, though at cost of great misery. But he was in great peril of discovery by the servants of Sauron that lurked in Moria, especially since such bare necessity of food as he must have, he could only get by thieving dangerously. No doubt he had intended to use Moria simply as a secret passage westward, his purpose being to find Shire himself as quickly as he could. But he became lost, and it was a very long time before he found his way about. It thus seems probable that he had not long made his way towards the west gate when the 9 walkers arrived. He knew nothing, of course, about the action of the doors. To him they would seem huge and immovable, and though they had no lock or bar and opened outwards to a thrust, he did not discover that. In any case, he was now far away from any source of food, for the orcs were mostly in the east end of Moria, and was become weak and desperate, so that even if he had known all about the doors, he still could not have thrust them open. Now, there are some key bits here. First, Gollum clearly knew how to survive and traverse Moria, and had already done so, going from east to west. Second, he clearly made it in the east end of Moria, this despite the fact that that's where the orcs were mostly. If it wasn't hard for him to get in, it wouldn't be hard for him to get out. Now, the thing is, there had to be at least one other way for him to get in that didn't involve the bridge in the first place, because he would have been undoubtedly spotted during the initial portion of the journey if he were on the bridge. So he could have simply gotten out the way he got in, however that may have been. Keep in mind for this, he is a tremendous climber, and we know that there are windows. Now, another thing we know is that the orcs made it out and chased the company to Lorien. And yet they were all on the far side of the now broken bridge. Again, that suggests at least one other way across or around the chasm. And of course, they could have found a way to bridge it quickly. It's 50 feet, so maybe not that quickly. But if they did bridge it, Gollum could have snuck across after them. That doesn't work super well, though, because the company hear Gollum behind them long before the orcs chase them. So that answer seems unlikely, that he followed the orcs out. In fact, it's the fact that he catches up to them with such speed that makes me think the answer is something else entirely. He left before they did. I mean, here's the thing. He clearly knew where they were headed. There are only 2 doors, and they're headed east. Why not get out before them and follow them from a place where the orcs won't get in his way? Remember, this is exactly what he did with Bilbo in The Hobbit. When he's arguing with himself about what to do after he discovers the ring is gone, we read that Gollum says,
It knows a way in. It must know a way out, yes. It's off to the back door. To the back door, that's it."
So he thinks that Bilbo's going ahead of him. So what's he going to do? He's going to get in front of him too. Later in the argument, Smeagol responds,
"And let's stop talking precious and make haste. If the Baggins has gone that way, we must go quick and see. Not far now. Make haste."
And I apologize if my Gollum sounds like Yoda. So here's the thing. Even though in this case Bilbo is actually behind him, Gollum thinks that he's in front of him, so he's going to go ahead of him to cut him off. Now that I think about it, that's also what he does at Shelob's lair. He jumps on Sam after Sam has escaped from the spider's tunnels, clearly having gotten out of the tunnels first. On the slopes of Mount Doom, too. He follows Frodo and Sam up the slopes, but then he gets ahead of them to ambush them around a corner. Thing is, he's got a habit of this. So I'm going to go with this as my answer. He got out ahead of them and waited to follow. Of course, I'm happy to hear thoughts from anyone else, so let me know in the comments or by emailing Barliman. Folks, that wraps it up for today's Mailbag Monday. If you have a question you'd like me to answer, please email it to barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Just let him know it's for today's Tolkien Times, and I'll get to it soon. And if these few minutes leave you wanting more Tolkien content, be sure to check out the Prancing Pony Podcast, where we've spent 7 years or more walking through the books, answering mailbag questions just like these, and having a nice chat at the pub about our favorite author. And join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for Tolkien Tuesday as we learn more about the professor himself. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, follow or subscribe on your podcast apps to make sure each episode gets downloaded to your device, and follow @Tolkien Times on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.